Hi, everybody. Welcome back to AWT Live. This is September 12th, 2020. And this is our live stream show where we kind of try to get to know people who are in the world of Apple, who do some phenomenal things. Now, if you've spent any time at all reading Apple World today, you probably have read the articles and seen the videos created by Niles Mitchell, in which he takes unlikely combinations of old and new hardware and he tries to get them working together, and he's usually very, very successful. So basically his YouTube channel is called Will It Work? And I hope I got that right. And it's a blast to watch. It really is a lot of fun. I think we kind of both share a love of, I guess you could say, antique technology. So Niles, if you could give our audience both, I don't know if we have any live viewers right now, but definitely people will be watching this on our YouTube channel and also on Apple World today. But if you could give people some background about yourself and how you got started doing your Will It Work videos, that'd be great.
Well, I'm from the Indianapolis area. I've been here my whole life, and been using Apple products really since I was a kid. My older brother was really into Apple II Plus, and I think he had 3 of those at one time. I don't know how he paid for that because we didn't have any money growing up, but he worked a lot. He's about 6 years older than me, so I've been using Apple stuff for a long, long time. And I got out of computers for a while, and my parents loved antiques, and my brother liked vintage cars, so I think a lot of that rubbed off me. Technology, so I kind of like gravitated down to the vintage tech for me. So I can remember back in the 90s when I got back into computers again once the web became a thing, and kind of got out of it in high school and college. I was in other hobbies then. And I remember I had my first brand new Mac. It was a Performance 6320, which was not a great machine in hindsight, but at the time it was incredibly fast compared to what I had before it. And you could buy, I'm not kidding, you could buy Mac 128K as the original model for like $20 or $40 back then.
Yeah.
Sites that would, little trader ads and things like that. And I think I had 3 of them at one time.
Whoa.
And I remember trying to get, for whatever reason, I became obsessed with trying to get that Performa and that 128K too. Not share files, which wasn't possible, but at least communicate in the terminal programs and over like a local talk cable. So that was like probably my first foray into getting something old working with something new. But it's a bug that just kind of stuck with me. So throughout the years, kind of up and down, when I get interested in this stuff, I'll start tinkering with it. And when Apple added the USB storage feature last year in iOS 13, a light bulb really went off, and I kind of got my passion again I said, I bet you I could hook some stuff up to this that nobody else is thinking about, and it kind of, I thought maybe I'd do 3 or 4 videos, and well, it just kept going. So that was a big thing. That was a big thing they added for me to tinker with that vintage tech.
Well, I tell you, that was such in some ways, somewhat of a shock when they did that, because I think a lot of us have been asking for it for so long. Hey, it would sure be great if we could plug in something and be able to move files over to it or do this and do that. And what it took was somebody like yourself to go in and actually, put 2 and 2 together there and say, this is kind of interesting. I can actually go in and I can hook up these devices. They have a USB connection on them. I can hook them up. I wonder if it'll work. And that's been the fun of watching your videos is, when you get in there and sometimes things aren't exactly, shall we say, transparent. They just don't click like that.
Right. I was surprised too when they added that. I mean, it's great, obviously, and it was needed, but I mean, that's something you thought they would have added like in 2010 or 2011, but they're getting closer and closer to kind of becoming a portless phone, I suppose. I'm shocked that they actually brought that out this late in the game. Who knows if it even sticks around.
Yeah, it's gonna. Yeah, I'm really kind of interested in seeing what they're going to be doing in the future, because we've seen kind of this move to a common file system. It's like every Apple device now supports Apple file system, which is kind of a first step, I guess you could say. And I always wonder, even though an Apple Watch definitely doesn't need the same operating system and the capabilities of a Mac, you just kind of wonder how much of that is turning into almost like common code among the different operating systems. So I don't know. I'm not, of a mind to actually go out and look at the code on each of the operating systems. But I'm sure there are a lot of people who are actually going in and looking at line by line and saying, oh, what, here's a common piece that I found in iOS, iPadOS, macOS, not in tvOS yet, but...
Right. Yeah, well, it's good for Apple, too, because the closer they can make all these things, the easier it is for them to maintain one code base and add devices to it and not have something be so different over here. And you're really seeing that with the Apple Silicon, too. They're really going to be on one hardware platform, and that's just huge, not only from their ability to be creative with it and make products when they want it and not be on somebody else's schedule. It's got to be a huge cost saving for them, too.
Yeah, I just wonder, I know we've kind of talked about it on previous versions of the show, but you wonder what kind of performance, just you're going to be able to see if they come out with some, massive Mac Pro that is running all Apple Silicon, 128 cores or something like that. It's just going to be phenomenal to see what they're able to do. And I think, once allegedly we're supposed to see the first Apple Silicon devices this year. And I kind of wonder if that's something that perhaps we might see as soon as next Tuesday, because they are supposed to have that Apple event. A lot of people are saying that no, they're not going to be introducing the new iPhone 12, that it's strictly going to be probably a new iPad, most likely a revised or redesigned iPad Air, and that we're probably also going to see, I'm trying to remember what the other thing was, a new Apple Watch. But what would you like to see on Tuesday?
Well, I think, yeah, it's a given. We're not going to get the phones till maybe October, but
Doggone
I'm really curious in those little tiles that they're making, if that comes out next week, because I could use that, and I just stick them in my kid's pocket or something. Not running around. I don't know. I'm just kidding. It probably doesn't work that far, but that's a new product rather than a revision. So I'm always interested in new things Apple comes out with, not necessarily. I mean, I love the latest models as much as anybody, but it's the new products that are interesting to me. And I would throw Apple Silicon in that because that really is a new product. It's an old product. It's something new, so that would be exciting too. But whenever I don't think that's happening next week. I think that's probably an October thing along with the phones.
Yeah.
But who knows? They surprise. So.
Yeah, they could really surprise us all, but you never know.
Everybody last year seemed convinced that there wasn't going to be an Apple Watch 5.
Yeah.
I mean, every blogger was like, nah, the 4 is fine. They're just going to skip over this year until they get something else going on. And here they came out with 5. And the only real big difference in it was the always on screen, but they did it anyway and they called it the 5. So who knows? See,
I keep wondering if they're going to be coming out with, an Apple Watch that would have a camera built in so you could do FaceTime calls from your watch, which would be really cool. Or, Zoom client on your watch.
Right.
You could literally be, I'm going to go out for a walk. Oh, I've got a call coming in. Okay, I'll be in this meeting. You talk about the perfect thing for a pandemic,
Yeah.
Have your meetings wherever you are.
And that kind of finalizes the whole Dick Tracy watch thing, I think, because if you know that cartoon back in the 30s or whatever, he had a radio watch. And then I think in the 50s or 60s, they added the video on it, trying to make it more high tech. So once the FaceTime gets to the Apple Watch, I think that whole concept is complete. Then
that will be cool.
It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, talk about the tiles. It's kind of funny because I remember last year there was some talk about it, and then earlier this year, of course, when they had the WWDC keynote, there was a lot of discussion. Oh, maybe they're going to finally get that product out there, and it didn't happen. And so this time, it would really be cool if they did finally come out with that product. The cool thing about it is I don't know if you've used any of those like tile-like products. Just about every manufacturer that has ever come out with them has sent them to me for testing, and I've never had a whole heck of a lot of luck with them. They always seem to fall off the Bluetooth connection. When you especially really need the connection, you want to be able to do that. And, a lot of this is based, I guess, on Apple's adoption of the ultra wideband technology and being able to actually kind of, turn your iPhone and say, oh, yeah, I'm seeing this other object over in this direction. With a lot of those devices, it was kind of like, walking around, and it was telling you, you're getting closer, oh, you're getting further away, oh, you're getting warmer. To be able to have a device that you could, just pull out your iPhone or maybe do it on your Apple Watch and say, oh, it's showing me it's 12 feet in that direction. That's going to be a game changer.
That's the Hollywood movie, right?
Yeah.
Fake trackers they always have. That's it. And if they can pull it off, then it's going to be huge because people already know that concept.
Yeah.
Not hot and cold and distant. They just want to pull it up and says, it's right there.
Yeah. And I swear, if they can do it right, that's the great thing about Apple. They're never first to market, but man, when they do it right. I think that could be another big product line for them. Like you said, you find, there's a lot of different objects that I can think about that I don't use very often, but when I need them, I love to be able to find them immediately. And I've gotten better about putting things in places. As you get older, you get that wisdom. You say, oh yeah, I'm going to put this here because the next time I need to do that particular thing, I'll think of it, and sure enough, there it's going to be. But it would sure be great to have those, I don't know what kind of lifetime the battery will have, or if they're going to use a rechargeable battery or whatever, but it would sure be great to be, able to just put one on something next year when you need it, pull out your phone and it says, oh, that thing's right over there. Go get it.
That should be my next video. I'll put the tile on an Apple II 1977 computer and then go through the video finding it. So, Apple tile connected to Apple II computer or something like that.
Yeah, physically.
Physically, just for a joke.
Well, I was going to ask you, what do you do for a living, and what other things do you do for fun when you're not making your videos?
I've been in application packaging for about 15 years. It's kind of a dry job, but basically it's in the Windows world. So if you're in medium to large companies and they deploy software out to thousands of computers rather than having some poor PC guy go around and do it manually. So the packagers will script, automate, configure, hack, whatever's necessary, that installer to automatically install and be configured the way the company wants it. Cool. So a lot of times it's really simple and a lot of times it's really hard, and it's every time you get one of those it's different, which kind of makes the job fresh. It's not very assembly line. You just never know. It drives project managers crazy because you'll buy a small company, and they have 200 apps that need to be packaged, and the project manager goes, well, how long will that take you to do? I'm like, I have no idea. Because it might take me an hour, and the next one might take me a week, and they don't like that. They're bricklayers, right? They say, how many bricks can you lay in a day? So that's what I do. It's not the sexiest job in the world, but I enjoy it because it makes you think logically and tinker around with something and come up with something new. Sometimes for the really stubborn ones, you feel like you accomplished something. So,
well, and it's really needed too. I can remember I had a brief foray into the world of Windows between 1995 and 2004. Actually worked for IBM for a while. And one of the projects I was working on was a huge Windows 2000 rollout, when that happened. And one of the things that we did for this client, which was a large electric gas utility company, multiple states, one of the things we did at that time was kind of go to a common environment. They were using a system management server. I don't know if that product even exists anymore, but I remember the packaging was a huge deal. And, more power to you. I was the project manager on the other end who was asking how long it was going to take to get done.
It's interesting because I started doing packaging in 2005, and what the MSI is, the Microsoft installer. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but it had been out for a few years and it was kind of gaining strength. But we were doing so many legacy apps that were executable installers, and a lot of them didn't have a way to run them silently or automatically, and you had to kind of reverse engineer it and all that. To think 15 years later that although I see more and more stuff in the MSI format, we still get terrible installers from vendors, and I'm like, who is on your programming team?
Yeah.
And we used to use a product called Wise Package Studio, and it's long gone now. But I remember somebody from that company explaining that to me in the early years. He says, what happens in companies is the new guy on the development team gets stuck with making the installer. So the hardcore programmers that have all these DLLs and all these things already on the machine and it's working right and everything like that, they don't think about that stuff. They just say, here's all the stuff to the new guy, and then he puts it together, and it's not very good usually. So that's why installers tend to be crap. So, and I think there was something to that, because it definitely feels that way sometimes.
How do you
But that's
feel?
what I do for a living. So.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing that from the Windows standpoint. I mean, how do you see kind of like the system management world and installers, from the Mac standpoint in comparison?
You mean just drag it off the disk image?
Yeah, that.
Or the package install. It's about your two choices,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different. And honestly, at the first company I was at where I did packaging was an insurance company. It was a medium-sized company. I think before I left there, I think we maybe had 15 Macs out of maybe 1,500 employees. A couple executives had on the print shop, the marketing team.
Yeah, the marketers always have them.
I just basically managed them with like Apple Remote Desktop, and I did everything manually. So I'd go home at night and fire up my MacBook the company got me, and I just log into these machines and run, the OS updates, the Adobe updates. I just did everything manually. It just wasn't anything that was worth investing to deploy to such few things, and nobody cared about it. So I just said, "Great, you know this stuff, so you do it." So and then every company I've been through since then is a lot larger, and I couldn't even tell you what they do with Macs in those companies. It's just outside of my window of what I do. So it's a different world, It's a very different world, because it's you're really dealing with a package installer. You're dealing with really a drag and drop app. So it's not comparable to Windows.
Well, I tell you, I've been really glad, just looking, and this is totally unpaid, comment here, but Jamf, JAMF. They've just done a phenomenal job in the Apple world of kind of going in and saying, hey, not only are we going to do system management, but we're going to do it inexpensively. We're going to do it for all your Apple devices, and we're going to do it in the cloud. And they really, they surprised me. I mean, they kind of came out, it seemed like they came out of nowhere. I can remember, towards the end of my time as a Mac consultant, I've had so many lifetimes out here, but at the end of my time as a Mac consultant, you were starting to see some system management tools where you could really go in and say, okay, now I'm going to install all of this on all these different items. But they've created this incredible way that, somebody can pull a Mac or an iPad or an iPhone out of a box, and to have that automatically added to a company's inventory, to have the proper apps and settings thrown in there. Apple simply didn't have the wherewithal, or I think the desire to do that. So it was really good to see a third party like that come out with it. And I'm sure there are other companies out there, but I tell you, I sure see a lot about Jamf. We usually send one of our guys, Marty Edwards, and his wife Ruby. They usually go to the Jamf conference every year, and it amazes me what that company does to help deployment. So it's cool hearing, I love hearing that you're not normally in the world of Apple, but you love working with this stuff.
No, I'm not, and I really haven't been in almost 10 years when I left that insurance company. So I'm strictly in the Windows world. So at work, and then I come home and I flip the switch, And so I when I get into arguments with people about Windows and Microsoft and Apple, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. I live and breathe in both worlds, and I can tell you this one is better than that one because I don't know it superficially. Somebody knows it superficially and is familiar with one and then just doesn't like the other because they don't know how to get around in it. Yeah. But if you do what I do, which I do some programming too on the side, and then the packaging, which is a lot of hacking and scripting and so forth, you see just how nasty Windows is under the hood, even to this day, and how much cleaner the Mac experience is.
And it wasn't always that way. That's the amazing thing is I do, you still hear a lot of complaints from developers saying, well, Apple is just, they're horrible and they're, trying to force us all into the App Store. You're seeing all this junk going on right now where, there's starting to be more and more voices out there saying, well, we don't want to give this 30% to Apple to be in the App Store. Yet they've created this amazing store out there. I can't see why people think that needs to be something that the developer gets 100% of the take for it. Sure, it'd be nice for as a developer if you could get 100% of your profit, but still, even in if you're selling a product, not just giving it away, even in creating your own online store, there is a cost. You've got to, I've done a lot with, setting up payment systems for some organizations, and all of the payment systems take some cut. There always will be that cut out there. It's not free. And I think Apple's done a tremendous job in just being able, with the App Store, of creating that easy to use environment for users where you don't have to worry about it. You just go out, you search for an app, somebody tells you about an app, they send you a link, you click on it, it downloads, boom, it's there. If you need to pay for it, it's done, And getting the friction away from the purchase is what makes people actually buy your program. So...
And I had, like I said, I dabbled in programming a little bit, and I had a few apps on the Mac App Store for about 4 or 5 years, and I never had a problem with 30%. I mean, I sold this all over the world, and it was always crazy to see people buy, in Ukraine, buy your program, and they were taking care of value-added tax and local stuff, and I'm like, why would I want to fool with that? I don't even know how to do that. Take my 30%. It's fine. You deal with it. I had no problem with that.
Yeah, it's always fun as a developer, having to set up that stuff, in the store the first time, which countries do you want to sell your program in? Ding, 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 ding. Go through the list there. That was pretty crazy. And I think we kind of, you hit on that earlier. What was your first Apple product that you used? Was that Apple II Plus?
Well, when my brother took off for college, he left me with one of his. My dad originally got me a Commodore VIC-20, so that was my first computer. So I learned BASIC on the 3.5K of RAM.
Yeah.
But my brother left me with the Apple II Plus for I think it was my freshman year of high school. So that was my baby for about a year. And then he came home for the summer for a visit, and he took it because he's poor and he needed to sell it. And then I didn't have an Apple product. So that would have been, I think, in '87. I don't think I owned an Apple product again for like 9 years. But I did use Macs in that time. I started using, the first Mac I ever used was in high school on the newspaper staff.
Okay.
So junior and senior year. So we had, I want to say it was 2 Mac Pluses hooked into a laser printer. And then off in the corner on a cart was what I can only assume was a Mac 512K. Because I remember there was a problem with the discs, and you had to put a certain kind of, it was because it couldn't read the double-sided discs. I'm sure it wasn't 128, because I doubt that could run Pagemaker. But so those were my first experiences. And I always try to tell people, younger people, how incredible that was in 1988 when I started my junior year there, that you could put text up on a page and then drag the window and it would resize around the photograph you had for the school paper. There was nothing like that in the world. It was an incredible thing, and it got me hooked on. So, when I went out to college, I didn't have a computer, but if I had a type of paper up to go to the computer lab, I always went over to the Mac side, and all these other poor souls were sitting around in a DOS word processor in the early '90s. So it's no Windows 95 then. So I kind of kept that connection with the Mac a little bit through the years, just very small. And then when I got out of college and the internet took off, there was never any question that I was going to get a Mac.
Yeah, it's so funny, you're talking about that, the entire page layout software, getting that started up. I can remember back in the early days, my first Mac was a 512K, later became a 512K enhanced. With the upgrade that you could get. But right. The thing that really, really amazed me was the user groups back in those days, because you would go to a Mac user group. I mean, now there are people my age, going to Mac user groups. Back in those days, it was a lot of young people, and you would basically go there with a box of blank discs, and you would sit there during most of the meeting copying discs.
Right.
And, trying to running certain programs that would actually allow you to break the copy protection on some of these things. We were horrible about it. But, when you think of the cost of software back then, too, it was ridiculously expensive. And my first Pagemaker, good old Aldous Pagemaker back in those days, was a pirated copy. And I remember bringing that. I was carrying my Mac to the office. This was before we started actually buying a lot of Macs for this business. I was the de facto IT manager for this company of about 250 people. And so when Steve liked Macs, all of a sudden everybody was getting Macs. That's how it worked. It was kind of sneaky. But the thing that was great, it was bringing in this Mac 512, and I was showing people, we had a business manager, I think it was, it was kind of over the finance department, and every year our subsidiary had to create a small annual report. And, he was talking about how expensive it was. Oh, we have to take all this information over and we bring it to this person, and they do all this layout work and blah, blah, blah. He's going on through all this discussion, how expensive it was because it wasn't being done in-house. And I said, tell you what, give me the information and I will go in, and within a month I will create your document for you. And if there's a place in town, I knew there was one place in Metro Denver where we could get, the output in such a way that it was camera ready, and we could then send it to a printer. And so I really didn't know Pagemaker. I got to know it pretty intimately very, very quickly. Put together this thing, and we were able to do it within a month. And since it was done in-house, there was essentially no cost associated with it. And the next thing I knew, this manager of that department said, that's it. Get rid of our PCs. We're all getting Macs because we need to be able to do this next year. And pretty soon that was what we had. It was crazy. It was fun how that worked. But Pagemaker, I'm glad you brought that up, because that allowed me to tell that story. That really was the end.
It was magic.
It
really
was
in the 80s. It was magic, and I don't know how people did it before. Like, I remember, like, we would design the page on the Mac, and with whatever photograph or another borders and things like that, and then we'd print it off on the laser printer, and we would glue it onto these cardboard sheets.
Yeah.
With glue sticks, like 2 pages or whatever, and then you would put the picture on top of it, and that went off to the printer that I guess would scan them or whatever and make our newspaper with. But we had to actually glue these pages around the laser printer, and then put the photo and cut it and put it in the little square we'd made for the photo, and then that went off to the print shop or whatever.
Yeah, and it was so funny too, because I can remember they would, when they would do those paste-up boards like you were talking about there, they'd go to the printer, and the printer would have to, in some cases, cut out, if you had any lines that you were using to line up the blocks of print or the photos, they would actually have to cut those out or use whiteout. That was a good thing to go in and get rid of that. Crazy days.
Yeah.
So what all do you have in your vintage hardware collection? I mean, if you can remember it all. I bet you've got a ton.
Currently, you're probably going to be surprised, but I really don't have much. I tend to, with my videos, I tend to buy this stuff and then make the video and then sell it back on eBay. So it gives me a little bit of wiggle room with my wife. I'm like, well, it's coming and going. I'm not accumulating all this stuff. So I don't really have a lot right now. I have a Wall Street laptop, which I've had 2 times in my last 10 years, and that is, in my opinion, the perfect bridge computer. So
Cool.
It has everything that is gone in the newer Macs, but is still new enough to host making disks and so forth for classic Macs, and it has everything, and it's small, it folds up, and and it has PC cards. So I have, I boot off a compact flash, it's silent. I added USB in the other PC slot. I have a SCSI port. I have local talk, which is huge for networking on the classic that you don't get on the modern Mac. And then one of the most important things is that special Apple floppy disk that can actually make the 400 and 800K disks necessary to boot up a classic Mac, because you can't do that in a USB drive today, because those are PC drives. They don't do that GRC encoding on those disks. So to me, Wall Street is like the perfect little bridge to the past. So I'm going to keep it this time around, because they're not really worth much to resell, maybe $50 or something, and it's worth way more than that for me just to keep it. So that stays here. That's the only other Mac I have right now. I have a couple of iPod photos, because I did some videos with those. Those are probably on their way out, but I don't think anybody really cared about those videos. I have a jazz drive, again, the second time around. I find myself rebuying this stuff. So I have a jazz drive that I can use my SCSI to USB converter with, and I just got in a Mation Super Disc again, which is another one I've had twice now, and that one's staying with me for a while. So I don't really have a ton of vintage stuff right now. It kind of comes and goes.
Yeah, but it's amazing how you're able to, do this. I just love seeing that type of thing. One thing that's always a lot of fun to do too is to try to, and I know you've accomplished it on some of your videos, but starting something on, an old device, which kicks off something on another device, which then does something on the Mac. And I've loved being able to, in some cases, start something with a, some device. I can't even think of anything right offhand, but be able to get it to run like a Apple script or an automation that you've created, and just get that to tumble off and do something else. And it's just kind of crazy. I think you've done some stuff using Siri and some of the old devices.
You're probably talking about some of my old Mac 512K videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were quite a few years ago. Yeah, I did a
Yeah.
whole series of those before that kind of petered out. And yeah, I did do some stuff where I was able to like send myself an email, which would trigger a script, which would then go down through the Wall Street down to the Mac 512K. And yeah, spent many nights figuring that out,
And it's,
for
it's,
no reason other than to just say, I figured it out. Right?
yeah, to be able to say, I did it, and it's like a puzzle. Like you said, a very big puzzle saying, well, how do I get this to talk to this, to talk to that, and get this to do this? It's fun. It's just, it's like building a puzzle, more
Right.
than putting one together. What do you think, of all the Apple products you've played with or used over the years, what was your favorite Apple product of all time?
Oh, I don't think anything ever topped probably getting the iPhone on day one.
Yeah.
I stood in line for that. I took the day off work and got there early enough. I think it was third in line at the AT&T store. I figured the Apple store at the mall was going to be a madhouse, so I would just pick it up at the AT&T store. And
Cool.
I mean, that was just, like we were talking earlier with the Mac, it was just so ahead of its time. I mean, people, I'd show it to my friends and they couldn't believe, just pinching in on a pitch
Yeah.
or having
Look at
random
this.
access to voicemail, instead of hitting next to your voicemail, just being able to pull it up like an email. And, I mean, looking back on it now, some of it seems so crude, but at the time it was just, and it was, I paid $600 for it. Like, it wasn't subsidized the first
Yeah.
year. So we'd all be out at the pool. This was long before I was married. We'd all be out at the pool on the weekends. And, I'd put it in like a cardboard box and my headphones would come out of the cardboard box because, everybody else would just throw their flip phones on the table. And I was like, this is $600. I'm taking care of this.
Yeah. Nobody's going to see this or take it.
Right.
God, this is just crazy. Yeah, and I always have to remember, I should have put it out there this year because I've been posting it probably every year since 2007 on one site or another. But I have this video that I put together, and it was, being in line at the store. In fact, I think I went up to the person who had started camping like 2 days before and talked with her. And then, interviewed some people in the line. And, as the day wore on, I got out there 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And they finally opened the doors. I can't remember. It was either 4 or 5 p.m. and started letting people in. And then I kind of went through the process of purchasing this thing. And that video, strangely enough, ended up being in an Apple documentary that somebody made years later. I got this, hey, could we use your film in there? And I'm like, sure. I don't know why you'd want to do it. And I never heard anything about it again for about a year. And then I got, this note. Oh, by the way, the documentary just came out. And I'm like, okay, cool. And,
Time.
and then somebody said they saw. I don't think I've ever seen the documentary, but they said, "Oh, your name's in the credits." So I was like, "Cool, very cool thing there." But yeah, I got to admit that first, it took me, I think, close to 18 hours to actually get the thing activated because AT&T was not ready for it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was nuts. But what a cool product.
I remember the kid, there was two kids in front of me. I say kids because I'm younger now. They were probably in their early 20s, and they worked for some company, I think it was called Cha-Cha back then, which may have been Indiana local, I don't know, some kind of like thing where you could text questions and somebody would look it up and text it back to you. And then like the president of the company sent these guys, they were probably interns, and he sent them out to get on the phone, and they were standing in front of me, and I was third. So that was a great day. I remember the confusion on site. Like, this was so funny. So, like, while we were standing in line, like, people from the Sprint store came out and, like, were handing out flyers about how they had better deals. I'm like, these people are standing in line for this phone. I don't think you're going to change their mind at this point. It was so pathetic. And then the confused look on some people's faces, because if you remember, you had to, like, go home and activate it with iTunes.
Yeah.
Like, AT&T couldn't activate it for you. And so the guy came out of the store and he was just going up and down the line. He goes, let's go over a few things. You need to have a Mac with whatever the minimum operating system was, and for iTunes at the time, and then Windows XP Service Pack 2 or something like that. And the confused look on the Windows user's face is like, they didn't even know what they had. I saw guys calling their wives asking if they had Service Pack 2 on XP or something, because they would have to run the most current iTunes to activate the phone. They weren't used to that, right? You go to the store, you walk out with a phone that's working. So thank God that's long gone. And
yeah, it's amazing how
the watch here before long. I think you'll be able to go in and just activate a cellular watch. They'll break it free of the iPhone eventually.
Yeah, we can only hope.
And you'll see some hipsters running around and say, I don't have a computer or a phone. I just got the watch.
Yeah, all I'm using is my watch for everything, man.
Yeah.
Well, either that or
more power to them if they can get by with it. I mean, why wouldn't you want to just have the watch, right? If it does everything you need.
You see, the one thing I'm really hoping for, we keep hearing about Apple glasses. They're going to have some sort of augmented reality display, and you're going to be able to do a lot of things with it. Well, since I've been stuck with these things since I was like 6 or 7 years old, I would love to be able to replace the Apple Watch with a pair of glasses that I could just say, hey, blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to say that name, by the way, SIRI. I didn't want to say that because my computer will respond here. Be a horrible thing.
Took me a second. Now I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. I just realized hold on a second here. My power cord popped out of the computer there, so this thing was getting down to not having any juice. Sorry about that. Anyway, let's see, some other fun questions here. What's your favorite non-Apple product? And I'm talking about, computer techie fun stuff.
Gosh, so much of what we have is Apple stuff. I don't really know in that field. I don't know how broad you want to go with that question, but I don't even know, really. I mean, for like a small consumer product, something like that is what you're talking about? Or?
Yeah.
Everything's Apple in this house. We have a Kindle, which I enjoy reading once in a while. My wife reads it more than I do lately. But
is that one of the Paperwhites?
It's God, what is it? We had a Voyage for a few years, and it just broke like a month ago. And I think the new one is the Paperwhite. I think is what it is. Cool. It's not the real expensive Odyssey or whatever that one is you hold with one hand, and they have a real expensive one. I don't know, but it's just a standard one, so it's a neat little device. Yeah,
it amazes me. They've done a really, really good job of kind of updating the Kindle. I had the first generation. That thing was horrible. The user interface on it was really quirky. You had this bizarre little keyboard, and you had this slider, and it was weird. Second generation, great. First generation was just plain weird. But
I was all sold on the iPhone being the way to read books. Because there was this app that came out very early on with the App Store. I think it was called Classics.
Or something like that, yeah.
It had several public domain books in it, and you could turn the page and curl it up with the animations and all that. I thought that was so great. And then Apple basically did the same thing with iBooks early on. But honestly, once I got the Kindle and I saw what everybody was talking about the e-ink and how it's just better on your eyes, and it just feels like you're reading a book. And so I will say that for that product alone, it's the way to read an electronic book.
Yeah, good stuff there.
I'm not crazy about everything Amazon does. We don't have dots and echoes in our house or anything like that. But, and so many people do. And they listen to music on these crappy little things, and they think it's okay. I'm like, I don't have a HomePod, but I don't listen to music on a hockey puck.
Yeah, I don't have a HomePod or I have an Amazon Echo, one of the little ones, and I just got rid of it because most of the time I had the microphone turned off anyway because I didn't want it listening to everything.
Right.
And I finally went, what's the use of having this?
Right.
So, privacy-wise, I just said, nah.
Yeah.
didn't need that.
I might be interested in a HomePod eventually. It'd be interesting to see if they come up with like a less expensive one or whatever that still sounds pretty good. And that might be something we'd get for the living room or something. But I don't know. We usually just listen to it in our cars or right on our iPhone speaker, which is terrible, I guess. But I don't know. We're probably not audio connoisseurs.
Well, it's just like my hearing is so bad anymore that it really doesn't make that much of a difference anyway. So it's
right. I didn't used to be that way. I used to be really into home theater and stuff. But
me too.
That's something I've come down on a little bit.
Yeah, at one point
Although
in my
I still
life,
have my 4K Blu-ray player, and I do love that. But I just don't buy discs like we buy. Most of the stuff we buy is for my son. He's 8, and so it's mostly like cartoons and things like that. So we buy it on Apple TV. But as these movies I really love slowly come out on 4K Blu-ray, I will get those. So I may only wind up with like 15 of them in its entire lifetime, but I'll have my very favorites there because it's just simply better than what Apple TV has, even their 4K stuff. So
yeah,
that would be another consumer device that it's outside of Apple where I insist on the best
cool.
picture.
Yeah, believe it or not, I still don't have a tech geek like myself, I still don't have a 4K TV because we've got this, I think it's a 2006 Panasonic Viera plasma TV, and It's still absolutely gorgeous picture on it.
Plasmas are beautiful.
I mean, it's just, we've never had to do anything with it. It's just keeps running. And I keep hoping, it's like, please break one of these days so we can actually, bump it up to 4K here. That'd be great.
It's a subtle difference, It's most people, unless you're a real videophile or something, don't notice the difference between the two, and so people aren't clamoring to go out and get it. So I think what happened is, they're all 4K now, even the cheap ones. So if your TV breaks and you go out, it's not like you're like, do I get a 4K or do I not? That $200 20-inch TV is 4K. I mean, it's just the way it went, right? So it kind of came into people's homes a lot through attrition, I think, rather than HD, where people said, you walk in the store, you immediately knew you were looking at something different, right? It just over standard definition. So people went out and said, I want HD TV to watch the Super Bowl, watch movies with. That was something they actively sought. I think 4K, it's just through attrition.
Yeah, and it's so funny how it just, like you said, it used to be you would go into a store, for something like that plasma TV, and it was like, well, we're making this commitment to buy this expensive TV. I won't tell you how expensive it was in 2006, but, it was such a big thing. And now you go to Target, and you can get this, Mongo, 98-inch, 4K TV for $600. It's crazy. It's just... It's insane.
The TV market, the profits have been almost non-existent for many, many years now. It's so cutthroat. And that's probably one of the reasons Apple never wound up getting in there, because it's like, there's no money here.
Yeah.
There's no money in it. It's a race to the bottom.
And I always had to laugh. What was that guy's name? Oh, God. Munster. Yes, Gene Munster. He was so sure that Apple was going to come out with an Apple-branded TV.
Right.
Poor Gene.
Yeah. I'm sure they toyed around with it, but there's just no money there. I mean, it would be suicide to go out with an Apple premium price on those TVs that wouldn't probably be much better than having a Sony or a Samsung with a $100 Apple TV plugged into it,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I love, one thing that's just amazing me, too, is that by the time I probably will get that new 4K TV one of these days, I love how a lot of the major manufacturers are now building an Apple TV app into their devices. It's like LG, Samsung, Vizio. I think all the major players out there now support, so I can actually, one of these days, get rid of the Apple TV box, Too cool.
Right. And I think that's just I think once Apple got into like streaming and making their own, their video on Apple TV Plus, which don't get me started on that naming convention with that. That's the most
Yeah.
confusing thing they do.
Agreed.
Then it was just in their best interest to get that out as many people as possible and not tie it into their own hardware.
Yeah.
So that's a big change for Apple, I think, breaking free of locking it into their own hardware for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was a real surprise when they did that. I remember.
And AirPlay 2, I think, is in a lot of these. AirPlay 2 is in a lot of these TVs as well. Some of these receivers that are out, so they're pretty good about licensing it out, I guess. So it's a smart thing.
Yeah. Finally. Well, at least they're not letting clone manufacturers make iPhones. So
Yeah. No, it only goes so far.
Yeah.
Only when it makes sense.
Well, one other thing I was going to ask, if you, I love asking these questions because they really open it up to a lot of discussion. But was there ever an Apple product that you had that you really just hated? And you thought, this is the stupidest product I've ever seen in my life?
I've had vintage computers before that weren't that great. I think the guy at Low End Mac calls them road apples. But honestly, the things that have frustrated me more about Apple has usually been some of their software choices rather than their hardware. There's certain things they do, and they've done it more in the later years that just kind of really irritate me. So there's I hate natural scrolling on a Mac. I don't know what the purpose of that is.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I turn off when I go to someone's house that has a Mac. And they're like, oh, thank you. I didn't know I could do that. Yeah. I don't know. Apple lives in this world where they think that, because you use an iPad and iPhone, you want your scrolling to work the same way on the Mac. And most of these people that own Macs are going to a job during the day where they're using Windows, and the scrolling is the other. What is the purpose of that? That's a bad decision. I don't like how they've turned off the hard drive icons and things like that off the desktop. You have to go back in the preferences and turn them on. It's a new computer. I don't know. The things that irritate me that Apple does is usually little stuff like that on their software more than their hardware, to be honest. There's just head scratchers. This makes no sense. This is not better. This is just
It's just being...
I think some of that stuff is left over from Johnny Ives. I don't know. We'll see how he's gone. If some of this minimalist approach kind of goes away and it gets a little more practical again. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I tell you, the one thing I really wish... right now we've got the dynamic desktop. Had it for the last couple of years on the Mac where, it changes depending on what time of day it is. And I really wish what they would do is find a place where they could put in a camera, actually put in a camera and do a 24-hour-a-day, live view of some particular place. Now, the problem with that, of course, is I'm sure that somebody would, say, oh, I know exactly where that location is. And you start having people going out there and holding up signs or, protesting in front of it, doing that type of thing, which could be an issue.
Games would find it.
What's that?
Epic Games would find it and put their little protest on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you remember this. They've had this for years and years and years. I remember these shareware programs where you could play a video out of your desktop. Remember that?
Yeah.
There's more than a company that did that over the years. And I'm surprised that hasn't, with the processing power they have now and everything, the graphics power, that should be a lot smoother than it was back then. I'm surprised Apple, you're right, that they haven't done something like that with full motion video kind of in the background, whether it's the ocean or whatever.
Well, I'd love to see
something gives you serenity, right?
Yeah.
You want to watch.
Well, being a space geek too, I would love to see 24/7 live stream from the International Space Station or some other source. Maybe you could, if they could put cameras on every one of the Starlink satellites, you could have this 24/7 feed. Put that onto your background. That'd be cool. That'd be just fantastic.
No, I'm surprised they haven't done something like that.
Yeah, they're probably working on it.
Yeah. But you're right. That would be nice. And I used to have those little third-party tools.
Yeah.
They worked okay. It's something that it would crash once in a while, and you just go back to the desktop. But if they baked it into the OS and with today's processing power, like I was saying, it shouldn't be a problem. They'll just run that continuously.
Well, we're getting close to the end of an hour here. I was just wondering if you could.
Right? That went by quick.
Yeah, it goes by. These things always scare the heck out of me because we talk and I'm going 5 minutes into it, and I look at the watch and it's an hour. It's fun, it's just too much fun. But if you could tell people where they can find you online.
Oh, sure. You can just look for Will at Work on YouTube if you want to subscribe to my channel. And it's a little logo of a little guy trying to put a square peg in a round hole. It's a little logo I have on there, so that's how you know it's my channel. And I'm on Twitter under Basic Integer, one word. And I don't really have a lot of people that follow me on Twitter, but on YouTube, it grows a few every week, so it's been nice to see that.
You've got a much larger audience for that than we do with the Apple World Today channel, which is, congrats to you. That is very cool.
Oh, well, thanks. I still, I have my 4 or 5 guys I like to watch on there. They've all passed 1 million subscribers in the last year, so I'm like, I can't even fathom that. When I hit 1,000 and was able to turn on, some monetization, I was just 1,000 just seemed like a lot.
Well,
I can't even fathom what some of these guys have. They've done so well. That's their day job, and I'm like, this isn't even my vacation fund job. Like, it's nothing. The money is so minute right now. It's. I think my wife teases me. She's like, "Well, have you gotten paid yet from them?" Like, not yet.
It's getting close. Yeah,
just getting closer. So I don't know. I'll do it a while longer. I mean, I was doing videos like every 2 weeks, and that's just not sustainable. I'm running out of stuff to. So we'll see. I'm going to continue to do it, and if it peters out, it peters out. But it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been interesting with YouTube, because back in the day, it was like you could just turn on monetization regardless of how big or how small you were, and it wasn't a lot of money, but the money would roll in. And then when they went to the revised limits, it was like all of a sudden Apple World Today was the spigot got turned off. And so now I'm trying to build that back up again because we're seeing some of our other revenue sources really drying up. Advertising, online advertising is just horrible right now, and I think it's going to get worse. So you don't make a lot of money that way.
I had it on too a few years ago just for grins. I had some other probably stuff that was copyrighted up there, so I think that stopped me from turning it on. But I did turn on a little bit with those old Mac 512K videos, and I think I made like $3 over a year or something because it wasn't anything new. I wasn't making anything new. It was just old stuff. And then they changed the rules, and then I thought, well, that's and then Apple did that thing with USB last year, and I was like, okay, let's make a run for it.
We're back on.
Put it back on.
Too cool. Well, Niles, it was absolutely great chatting with you almost in person. And I guess this, in coronavirus days here, this is about as in person as anybody's getting. But it was absolutely great having you on. I may have to do it again some point in the future. We can talk about stuff other than what we talked about today. So
sure, anytime. I can't believe the hour went by. That was a
fast hour. Well, for Apple World Today, I'm Steve Sande. Once again, our guest today has been Niles Mitchell. Be sure to go out to YouTube and subscribe to his Will It Work channel. And also remember to go out and subscribe to the Apple World Today channel, where you'll get to see this and a bunch of our how-to videos, which we're kind of bumping up the volume on, just simply because it's something to do. Well, thanks again, Niles, and
sure,
for everybody at Apple World Today, have a great day.